Oh boy. You guys can see the title of today's video. And when I tell you I could not wait to come share this, the title of today's video, looking down at my notes, you must come in at the door. Oh, if you know that old school church song, God's got a way that you can't go under. God's got a way that you can't go over. God's got a way that you can't go around. You must come in at the door. And that song was just in my spirit. I was just walking around the house singing it one day. And as I was singing that, God was ministering to me. God began to minister to me. And God sat me down and God said to me, let me look down at my notes here. God was telling me, there's no way around your calling. I was saved and still running. You know, as God had sat me down and ministered to me, God had me flash back to the time in my life where I was, saved, living for God, but I was still running, meaning I didn't answer the call. I wasn't ready to answer the call. God, I'm not ready. I'm not ready, God. I'm living for you, God. I'm saved. I gave my life to you, God. I'm committed to you. I said, God, right now I'm just not ready to answer that call. I'm not ready. I don't know. I was afraid. I didn't know what the calling was. I didn't know what I had to do. I didn't know what sacrifices I had to make. But yeah, God sat me down and God was telling me that this was the time, when I finally answered the call. But God was mentoring to me the other day, and He was just reminding me of how I ran from my calling, how I ran from it, and how He was telling me that, you can't get around it. You can't, and we do that. We try to avoid our calling. We try to go around it. We try to ignore it. We try to do other things. And God was just telling me, that you can't go around it. You can't go around it. You can't go over it, under it, or around it. He's like, you got to answer the call. And God gets us in a place in our lives where we humble ourselves, where we get sick and tired, and we get tired, and we answer the call. And that's exactly what happened to me. I have been running for years, running for years from God, running from the call. And I just got tired. I got tired. And God said, are you ready? He said, are you ready now? And God said, are you tired of running? He said, are you tired of running? And I had gotten tired of running. I had got real tired of running. And that's what God does. He's so patient. He was patient with me, and He just waited. He never left me. And God said, I'm going to stay right here. God said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And I can remember running from the call and just saying I was living for God. I was living for God. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't, doing things out of His will, and that's what we think. Well, God, I'm living for you. God, I'm living right. I'm doing what your word say. But yet we have not answered the call. And God just brought that back to my memory, He brought it back to my memory, and He was saying, we run. We run from answering the call. We run from Him. We run from God. And God was just telling me that you've got to come through the door. You can't run. You can't run all your life. And God said He has a calling on your life. And God said He had a calling on my life. And God said, when you get tired, God said, I'll be here. He said, I'll be here waiting for you. And that's what He did. He waited patiently until I got tired of running. And I answered the call. It wasn't overnight. It definitely wasn't overnight. But when I got tired, when I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, I said, okay, God. And I humbled myself and I answered the call. And ever since I answered the call, it has been a mess. I'm being honest. Ever since I answered the call of God, you know, everything ain't bad. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, God, you see, this is why I didn't want to answer the call, God, because I knew it was going to be a mess. God, I knew it was going to get me out of my comfort zone, God, here with a YouTube channel, 2 YouTube channels. Don't forget, guys, go in the description box, click on that link to my second channel, guys. See, I do hair, makeup, nails, all kind of good stuff, grocery haul, shopping, makeup deals over there. So make sure you guys go check it out. It's in the description box, guys. But I said, yeah. I said, God, see, this is why I didn't want to answer the call, because I knew you were going to want me to do stuff out of my comfort zone, God. I knew you weren't going to let up. I knew you was going to want me to do this, want me to do that. I knew it. I said, God, I knew it. That's why I said, God, this is why I didn't want to answer the call. But yeah, God wanted me to come and talk about that today. God's got a way that you can't go under. God's got a way that you can't go over. God's got a way that you can't go around. You must come in at the door. Gotta answer that call. And God knows. He knows when we're going to answer. He does, doesn't he? He knows everything. He knows all. And God knows when we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, he knows we're going to answer that call. He knows. And he's so patient. He's so patient because God waited for years for me to answer the call. He waited years for me to answer it. I was just doing what I want to do, living my best life, still, you know. But you know what? Honestly, I was living for God. I was doing everything. But I did not answer the call. I did not say, God, okay, what is it that you had called me to do? I mean, I'm telling you, I was out there. I was living for God. I was living right. I wasn't living in sin. I wasn't doing stuff out of his will. But I did not answer the call. And God said, yes. I said, God, I feel like I'm doing everything right. He said, yeah. He said, you're doing everything right. God said, but you have yet to answer the call. God said, you have yet to answer the call and ask me what it is that I've called you to do. But I thank God for answering the call. Life has not been peaches and cream. They have not. Because I tell you, as soon as I humbled myself and really, really answered that call, I'm talking really, really answered the call. Soon as I did that, the very next couple of weeks, I've shared on my platform, you know, but as soon as I answered that call, it's like I was hit with one thing after another. Hit with breast cancer. I was hit with COVID, and it was just one thing after another. And you know what? Now that I think about it, God just dropped it in my spirit. Because I answered the call, it's like, once I answered the call, it's like I immediately went into training. You know, it's like when people enlist in the army and stuff. Once they enlist, you know, they go to boot camp. You know, they go to training, you know, to train them. And exactly that's what it was. God was just mentioning to me just now, saying that's exactly what it was. Once you answered that call, you immediately went into that training. That different level, that answering the call training. So, yeah. It's what God was talking to me about. It's what he was talking to me about, and I just had to come share it. You know, God, he always got me sharing something. When the time is right, God knows when you're going to answer that call. That's what God wanted me to come and talk about today, guys. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. My name is Arika Misha. Thank you guys for all your love and support. And God bless.